Before America had a president, before it had a constitution, before the 4th of July had fireworks, hot dogs, and people arguing about freedom on the internet, it had chamber pots. Lots and lots of chamber pots. In 1776, a man could write beautiful words about liberty, equality, and the future of mankind, then walk outside into a world that smelled like smoke, sweat, animal manure, rotting food, and human waste. This was not the clean, heroic version of the American Revolution you see in paintings. There was no soft golden lighting, no perfectly pressed uniforms, no fresh patriotic breeze. Real 1776 America was dirty. It was smelly. It was uncomfortable. And if you were an ordinary person living through it, one of the biggest threats to your life might not have been a British soldier. It might have been a glass of water. When Americans think of 1776, they usually imagine the Declaration of Independence, a room full of serious men, ink on parchment, big ideas, freedom. And yes, that part is real. But outside that room, life was much less inspirational. Most people did not wake up in clean bedrooms with running water and a private bathroom. They woke up in homes that could be crowded, smoky, and full of smells we would find unbearable today. The fireplace was not decoration. It was the stove, the heater, the only light after dark, and it filled everything with smoke. Your clothes absorbed that smoke. Your hair absorbed that smoke. Your walls, your food, your lungs, all of it, smoke. And bathing was not a morning routine. No showers, no deodorant, no shampoo. Cleanliness often meant washing your face and hands in a basin, maybe changing your linen shirt to feel fresher. A full bath? For most people, that was not a daily habit. Sometimes it happened far less often than we would be comfortable with today. So if you smelled bad in 1776, congratulations. So did everyone else. And yes, that probably included some of the men we now put on monuments. Now, let's talk about the bathroom, because this is where the heroic painting really starts to fall apart. Most people used chamber pots. A chamber pot was basically a bowl kept indoors, so you did not have to go outside at night. That sounds convenient, until you remember what was inside it. Every morning, someone had to empty that pot into a privy, into a pit, sometimes into something far too close to where people lived, walked, worked, or got their water. A privy was not a modern toilet. It was often a small wooden structure over a hole in the ground. And holes in the ground do not magically erase waste. They smell, they leak, they attract flies. They sit there, quietly, a few steps from daily life. In towns, the streets were not much better. Horses left manure everywhere. Pigs wandered through some neighborhoods. Trash could pile up. Mud was constant. So when someone says, the streets of colonial America, do not imagine a charming postcard village. Imagine dirt roads, animal waste, rotting garbage, flies, and somewhere in the middle of all that, a man in a powdered wig trying to look dignified. Now let's talk about food. For most people, meals were simple and repetitive. Bread, cornmeal, salted pork, beans, root vegetables, stew, whatever could be grown, preserved, hunted, or stretched for one more day. Without refrigeration, keeping food safe was constant work. Meat was salted, smoked, pickled, dried. These methods helped food last longer. They did not always make it delicious, and they did not make it risk-free. Milk could spoil, water could carry disease, food could attract insects, and if you were poor, you did not have the option of refusing dinner because it looked suspicious. If bread was hard, you soaked it. If meat was old, you cooked it again and hoped. If something tasted strange, well, you would find out tomorrow. And then came the teeth. George Washington, the man who would become the first president of the United States, suffered from terrible dental problems for much of his adult life. By the time he became president, he had only one natural tooth left. His famous dentures were not made of wood, as the legend says. They were made from materials like ivory, metal, animal teeth, and human teeth. Some of those human teeth were likely connected to enslaved people, a detail that makes the story much darker than the myth. Modern dentistry did not exist. Tooth decay was common. Tooth pain could become a nightmare that lasted for years. And if a tooth went bad, the solution was not a calm dental appointment. It was extraction, by someone with tools and confidence, not always skill, with no modern anesthesia, and no antibiotics if infection spread afterward. A bad tooth was not just annoying. It could kill you. Medicine, in general, was rough. A small wound could become infected. A fever could take you out in days. A bad winter could finish what disease had started. Doctors existed, but their tools were limited and their theories were sometimes more dangerous than the illness. Bloodletting was common. Purging was used. Pain relief was limited. If you got seriously sick in 1776, your survival often came down to one thing: luck. But the most terrifying enemy of the Revolutionary era was not a doctor with a knife. It was smallpox. Smallpox haunted the war. It spread through armies and communities. It scarred survivors for life. It killed. And armies were perfect environments for disease. Thousands of men crowded together. Shared camps. Shared water. Shared blankets. Shared lice. Shared misery. The winter at Valley Forge is remembered as a moment of heroic endurance. And it was. But here is what the paintings leave out. Soldiers arrived with inadequate shoes. Some wrapped their feet in rags. Many were hungry, cold, exhausted, and sick. Men died not only from battle, but from disease, exposure, and starvation. The camp was filthy. Food was scarce. Clothing was poor. Morale was breaking. Washington himself warned that the army was on the edge of collapse. The heroic image of a revolutionary soldier is a brave man with a musket. That image is not false, but it is incomplete. The real soldier was also hungry, cold, infested with lice, watching friends die from sickness, and wondering if tomorrow's enemy would be a British bullet or his own body giving out. But 1776 was not only dirty in the physical sense. There was another kind of dirt in the story. A moral contradiction. In the same year that American leaders declared, "All men are created equal," enslaved people were building their homes, cooking their food, cleaning their clothes, farming their land. Those words, "all men are created equal," were written by Thomas Jefferson, a man who enslaved more than 600 people over the course of his life. He did not free most of them when he wrote those words. He did not free most of them when America won the Revolution. And when he died, the vast majority of the people he enslaved were still not free. That is not a small detail. That is not a footnote. It is the central contradiction of 1776. The Revolution promised freedom, but that promise was never meant for everyone. Not for enslaved people. Not for native peoples whose land was being taken. Not for women who had little legal or political power. Not for many poor people who had little say in the country being built around them. So what do we do with all of this? We do not throw the story away, and we do not polish it until it shines. We hold both things at once. The ideals were real. The dirt was real. The courage was real. The injustice was real. The people of 1776 were not marble statues. They were human beings. They got sick. They smelled bad. They lost their teeth. They used chamber pots. They feared smallpox. They lived with insects, smoke, mud, and uncertainty. And inside all of that mess, they tried to build a new republic. Not a perfect country, not a finished country, but a country with a promise at its center. A promise that even when the founders themselves betrayed it, gave future generations something to fight toward. History does not smell like a museum gift shop. It smells like sweat, smoke, mud, blood, old food, fear, and sometimes, underneath all of that, something worth building. See you there.